What's the most fucked up thing a family member of yours has done? NSFW. My sisters used to pretend to put me in the oven. Apparently, I was only about 3 at the time. I don't remember. They put my in a wok and seasoned me. Buried all my clothes in the woods. This whole thread seems like a season of Law and Order. Well, I have an uncle who always beat his wife. So on one occasion she got into her car and ran him over multiple times. Broken leg, foot, ribs, collarbone, etc. He ended up staying at my dad's house for something like 9 months while he recovered. They got back together. He told her, well, yeah, finally got me back, yeah bitch. I had a cousin who was addicted to heroin and his parents were always doing stuff to bail him out and keep him from being homeless. One time they put down a deposit and paid rent for a furnished apartment for him. He ended up selling the furniture for drug money. Another time they rented a mobile home for him and couldn't figure out why the water bill was so high. Turns out he was charging his homeless friends $1 to take a bath shower, and that was going on pretty much around the clock. Not as bad as some of things on this thread, but this was a D move. I asked my uncle, who is a mechanic, if he could install new belts on my Honda since it would be much cheaper than taking it to a shop. He told me he would do it for me. I just had to buy the parts. Bought the parts. Took the car to him and came back a few hours later. He told me he was finished and I paid him $200 for a $450 job. Which was dope. A few days later my cousin texts me a picture of some parts that his dad asked him to put on eBay. They were all the parts that he said he installed on my car. My cousin thought they may be from me since he knew what job his dad was doing for me. I called my uncle and he denied it firmly. I still had the receipt and matched the barcodes to the ones on my receipt. So they were clearly mine. My cousin, who is also a mechanic, installed them for free for me a week later. Uncle still denies it and kept my $200. Don't talk to that pleb anymore even if he's around at family gatherings. Edit. Wow, this blew up, and for everyone wondering. You have to remove a ton of parts to get to the belts in a 2002 Honda Accord, so you can't necessarily see what work he did. Plus I'm deaf, not a mechanic, so I honestly don't know. So tough to decide. There's my grandmother who divorced my grandfather and married his brother, making her my great aunt. There's the other grandmother who showed up to my grandfather's funeral drunk, dressed like a $2 prostitute, cussed out the family, and nearly knocked the casket over. There's the 3 convicted child molesters, and then dozen non-convicted child molesters because it was a different time then and that kind of thing was kept in the family. There's the stepfather that tried to murder my pregnant mother. There's the cousin who shot himself in front of his kids. There's the guy who was caught ducking a goat. There's the guy who would give his kids booze on fishing trips to keep them quiet. All the kids were 5 and under. My sister, then 7 years old, tried to kill our newborn brother because she was jealous. So, take your pick on which one is the most fucked up thing. My brother stole $500 from my mom yesterday while we were away. She pays his car insurance and has looked the other way when he's taken stuff before. But this was her final straw. My brother threatened to kick in my front door and kill me. 6 mo pregnant. My husband and 2-year-old son. He had stolen the phone I had purchased for my dad and I turned it off. He wanted me to turn it back on. Meth is bad. Kids. My cousin tried choking me to death when I was like 6. He also loosened the bolts and put me coffee table. Told me to lay under it. And hit it so it fell on me. Killed the nerves in my 2 front teeth and had to get them pulled out. But now that fat bastard can't walk and has to wear diapers while spiraling into depression. So it all turned out well in the end. One of my younger brothers is currently dating our oldest brother's wife. They were having sex in secret for 3 years before anyone figured it out. My sister who ran away from home once put my cat in the refrigerator when she was in high school. What kind of psycho it? My aunt married a guy a few years back. He was a pathological liar and lied about literally everything for no reason. Tried to convince everyone he was in the military black ops and that there was no record of him because it was secret. He also did a lot of other ducked up stuff like threatening our family members and friends. And other things. He actually even tried to kill my uncle and my 2 cousins. But got his ass properly beat down with a baseball bat. Long story short, my aunt ended up divorcing him later cause he was an all-around ducking cunt. And he came to her house, rang the doorbell, then shot himself in the head with a handgun right on her doorstep. Real ducked up. Edit, it wasn't Jason Blaha. Edit 2. No. I don't mean they got divorced after he offed himself. They divorced and a couple months later he did the thing. One of my uncles borrowed $20,000 from my other more successful uncle to start a business and refuses to pay his more successful brother back because he's got so much money already. The more successful uncle refuses to sue him because that's not what family does. But they are no longer on speaking terms. Sister didn't inform me of my father's death and funeral. Ducking cunt. My sister talked my ex-husband into suing me for full custody at the exact moment I was unable to contest it properly because I had just suffered a huge loss at month 9 of my pregnancy. She also farded his case with lies to make me look like a terrible mother, while simultaneously patting me on the back and consoling me that he was a terrible man. He didn't win. But the case made things contentious for us for years and made it impossible to grieve with my now husband. Because I was in survival mode to make sure I didn't lose my daughter. My grandfather had my grandma change her will to cut out my mom 2 years after my grandma had developed full-blown dementia. My dad's wife told me that he was dead when he wasn't. I only found out months later when a relative said he'd recently had an operation and was doing well. I emailed her and said I believe dad has perked up a bit. She didn't respond. My grandfather married his stepdaughter. During my father-in-law's unexpected sickness and death, my brother-in-law got greedy. While my wife was staying with my Phil at the hospital, my Bill proceeded to loot my Phil of as many of his earthly possessions as he could load up, and took it all to his house. My wife has never been allowed to go through these personal possessions. After moving my Phil to hospice, to cover his tracks, my Bill proceeded to tell the entire family that I had stolen large amounts of money from my Phil. There was no truth to this whatsoever in any shape, form or fashion. And in fact, after my Phil's death, my Bill embezzled the estate fund's $50K from the account. My wife ended up suing him and he had to return half. This act tore the family apart, all because of greed. It's been 6 years and I think about it every day. Still. Dad got with my 17-year-old friend when I was 14. They have a whole family together. 14 years later, my sister-in-law was originally dating my oldest male cousin. She started cheating on him at some point with his brother. Now, she has a kid with both brothers and is in a long-term relationship with the younger one. My cousin molested me for 15 years. I could go on forever. Baby. A cousin of mine put a switchblade to my throat when I was about 8 to scare the it out of me. It worked. Almost literally. My grandmother said she needed a place to stay one night due to issues with her housemate. She slept on the couch for the next 10 years. Made no effort to get her own place despite having a very good retirement income and still working part-time as a nurse. Loved to hit the casino though. I have an uncle who molested his daughter and several of my other female cousins. H is not around anymore. My mom married a convinced child molester and would bring him with her to work. A job where there were unsupervised children. Stole my brothers and my inheritance from our grandfather to us, land, property and cash, because we're half-breeds. My cousin killed his brother and father. He got up one morning, had a glass of milk. I guess it was sad, because he said they were trying to poison him. He shot my uncle in his bed, and then went after Robert. When police arrived, he tried to say that Robert had killed his father and that he took the gun away from him and killed him in self-defense. However, the only place on the gun they could find Robert's prints were on the end of the gun barrel. Like he had tried to push it away. He is currently doing life without parole in the Oklahoma prison system. If anyone wants, I will link you to his prison page in the articles from the shooting. Really shy white guy here. Had a friend who happened to be a beautiful girl, but she was like my sister. There was sexual tension between us, but until I asked her if she wanted to go see Rush, RIP Professor Neil Peart, we didn't act on it. Concert was fantastic, and by the time we drove the 3 hours home she asked to stay at my place. I gave her my bed and tossed a pillow on the couch in my room. We were just talking about the concert when she said she was cold. I got her an extra blanket, said she is still cold, can I come lay with her? I do. Then she asked if I'm gay. I said hell no. She asks why I have never made a move on her. I say respect. She says fuck that and jumps on me. I'm glad she did, because the sex was perfect. We fit together just right. Next day I asked her to move in and she did. Spent a year trying to screw each other silly. Best year ever.